So you're staring down the bar exam essay. It's one of the most intimidating parts of the whole ordeal. But what if I told you there's a blueprint? A way to turn those confusing, high-pressure questions into answers that score big. Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down today. Let's get right into it.
To really get this, we have to go back in time, all the way to 1980. The bar chairperson, Justice Melencio Herrera, wrote a pretty scathing report. She said that some examinees showed an appalling lack of knowledge and, maybe even worse, an inability to logically string their thoughts together. You see, the problem wasn't just about knowing the law. It was about thinking and writing like a lawyer.
And how bad was it? Well, that same report showed scores as low as 7%. 7? That's not just a few people having a bad day. It pointed to a massive disconnect between what was being taught and what was actually needed to pass the bar.
So what kind of question could trip so many people up? Here's a real one from a past exam. An accused gets 2 life sentences for double murder. The question is, how do they serve them? Seems pretty straightforward, right? It's a classic test on criminal sentencing rules.
Okay, but then you get an answer like this. And yes, this was a real answer somebody wrote. I mean, where do you even begin? It's not just legally wrong, the logic is completely haywire, and the grammar, well, it's a total breakdown in communication. This is exactly the kind of thing that makes an examiner's head hurt.
And that brings us right to the core of the problem. You can memorize every article of every code, but it's not enough. The failures we saw back in 1980 are, believe it or not, still happening today. And it's because just knowing the law is only one piece of the puzzle.
It really boils down to 3 main issues. First, an inadequate command of English. If you can't write clearly, the examiner can't see what you know. Second, the inability to think logically, to connect the facts of the case to the law you're citing. And third, just a messy, poorly laid out answer. That just makes a tired examiner's job even harder.
Okay, enough about the problems. Let's talk about the solution. What is the difference between a failing answer and a fantastic one? When an examiner is buried under a mountain of booklets, what do they actually want to see pop off the page?
It all comes down to what we'll call the 4 L's. Think of this as your personal checklist for every single answer. You need the right law, obviously, but you also need clear language, sound logic to connect everything, and a clean layout that makes it easy to read. You nail these 4, you're in great shape.
So how do you actually do that? How do you put those 4 L's into practice under pressure? You need a system, a framework that you can rely on every single time. And that system is the ALAC method.
ALAC is your game plan. It's 4 simple steps. A, start with a direct answer, a simple yes or no. L, state the legal basis. What's the rule here? A, then comes the analysis. This is the most important part, where you apply that law to the specific facts. And C, a short, sweet conclusion that restates your answer. That's it. Simple, clear, and powerful.
And here's what that looks like in the real world. Just look at the structure. It starts with a direct no. Then it gives the legal basis, the elements of self-defense. Then the analysis, pointing out exactly which element is missing. And finally, a clear conclusion. It's clean, it's logical, it's exactly what an examiner is hoping to read.
This all feeds into a bigger principle, something we all know. Keep it short and simple, or KISS. You have to remember, your examiner is reading hundreds, maybe thousands of these answers. When they see a long, rambling paragraph, their heart sinks. A direct, concise answer shows confidence, and honestly, it shows respect for their time.
Okay, you've got the structure down cold with ALAC. Now let's talk about style. How do you sound like a seasoned lawyer from the very first sentence? You need a secret weapon, a little toolkit of confident, powerful first-liners.
So instead of just a plain old no, you can start with something that has real punch. The contention is totally misplaced, or the argument is bereft of merit. These phrases immediately signal to the examiner that you know what you're talking about, that you're in command.
And the same thing goes for when you're citing cases. Don't just say, "The Supreme Court said." Try something stronger, like, "It is well settled in this jurisdiction," or "In a landmark case, the Supreme Court ruled." It just adds so much more weight and authority to your argument.
So having these powerful phrases is huge, but you also have to be smart about how you use them because, not every question is a straightforward case problem where you can use the ALAC method perfectly. Sometimes they ask you to distinguish between two legal concepts.
For these distinction questions, here's the biggest mistake people make. They just define term A, and then they define term B. Don't do that. You're making the examiner do the hard work of finding the contrast. Instead, do it for them. Directly compare the two, using phrases like, in the former, while in the latter. It shows a much deeper level of understanding.
Okay, we've covered the micro skills, the structure, the language, the different question types. Now let's zoom out and talk about your macro strategy, how you're going to manage your time and your energy on the actual exam day.
Look, finishing the exam is half the battle, and that's all about strategy. First, budget your time. Look at the points for each question and allocate your minutes accordingly. Second, always read the question first before you get bogged down in a long story. Know what you're looking for. Third, before you write a single word, take 30 seconds to make a mental ALAC outline. And finally, the only way this becomes second nature is to practice, practice, practice with old exam questions.
And if you need one last thing to remember, think of this fantastic quote from Dean Ralph. He said, "An excellent bar exam answer is like a bikini. It's long enough to cover all the necessary details, but short enough to be interesting. It's perfect. Don't overwrite. Be direct, be efficient, and be compelling."
So there you have it. From the core problems to the 4 L's, from the ALAC method to your exam day strategy, you now have the blueprint. The only question left is, are you ready to transform your answers from confusing to truly compelling? You've got this.